Hello, everyone. Welcome back to StellaVision, Stella Rising's weekly marketing update. I'm Marlia Clark, CMO, and thanks so much for joining us. Today, we are kicking off our Stella fall season with our terrific Google agency partner, Tatiana Blanco-Bertolo. I'm so excited to have Tati back with us. She is such a great partner to our business, for our clients, and she really has terrific insights from Google today. She's going to look at what we need to do for holiday readiness, some really interesting consumer behavior changes, as well as specific category insights across CPG, retail, and beauty. She's also going to give us a peek at a suite of Google tools that have recently been updated and are really helpful for small businesses. I think you'll find them really interesting. As always, please submit questions as we go in the panel. We will answer as many as we can, but Tatiana also has lots of great content today, so reach out to me anytime. Right now, let's get started. Welcome, Tati.
Thank you, Marlea, and thank you to the Stella team for having me today. I think I was just thinking in my head how long I've been with you all. It's been about 2.5, 3 years almost. So it's been a great ride, and I consider you all family. So thank you all for having me here today. Really excited to discuss with you all the recent sort of consumer behavior changes, as well as what we're seeing for the holiday season. So next slide. One of the things that I wanted to discuss just is to give you a picture of what we're going to see this holiday season. So we're going to be looking at holiday best practices. We're also going to be looking at a little bit of CPG changes in the marketplace, as well as some beauty slides. So I present this number to you. It's a pretty large number, $571 billion. And what this represents is that for the first time since 2009, the US retail market is actually going to drop. So this is pretty significant. Next slide. Now, if you see, the good news is I just told you about the overall retail market. The good news is that e-commerce is actually expected to grow this year because of the pandemic, because of everything going on. We're actually seeing that we're going to see an 18% increase in US e-commerce sales. So that's about $108 billion. That drop overall for the US retail market is actually a 10% drop year over year, but for e-commerce, we're going to see an 18% increase year over year. Now I'm going to discuss a little bit of what we call holiday playbooks. I'll give you some timelines and tips here. So first off, let's discuss the holiday environment right now. It's a pretty unique one because we're moving to an e-commerce world, and there's more demand that's coming online, more queries that we haven't seen before. We will see an increase of CPCs during Black Friday across the board. There's just more competition, more people are looking to research online. That means more companies are starting to revamp their websites. Amazon Prime Day is being moved to October, so it's earlier now, right? So the holiday shopping experience and the research process has all been shifted to an earlier stance. So that means competition across the board and admin inventory costs are going to rise. Stimulus checks are ending in October. So again, we want to make sure that you're creating all of your customer lists right now, September and October, so that you can start to remarket to these same leads come November, December. Supply chain issues is something that we have seen recently, and I don't know if you've heard about this in the news, but because of all the increase in e-commerce, we are running into delivery issues. And so you have to account for this. Please make sure that you work with your supply chain vendors to make sure that you're set up for success come those peak days. And then, of course, the election always brings a lot of noise. We see an increase and rise in CPMs, cost per impressions, and CPCs. So just account for sort of this spike around the election season, a couple of days leading up to it and a couple of days after. And then in terms of what to expect for the holidays, so as I've mentioned, e-commerce will be a focal point this coming season. We're actually seeing that 60% of ages 55 plus plan to do more than half of their holiday shopping online. A sign that older audiences, and I think of my parents who definitely fit this demographic, and I see the way that they're using their smartphones and their desktops even more because we are at home. So they're just getting more comfortable actually buying online. So it kind of makes me a little happy just to see how easy the sort of the journey is for them. The whole point is for you to make sure that your e-commerce site is fluid easy, using big buttons, call to action buttons that kind of stand out, making sure that the shopping cart process is fluid as well. Brick and mortar is actually not going away. It's an extension of e-commerce. So buying online, picking up in store actually doubled globally this year. That's huge. We did not expect this, obviously, pre-COVID, but now because of COVID, everything has sort of accelerated. And 56% of active shoppers relied on the convenience of buying online, picking up in store during the holidays last year, which was an additional 18% in the days leading up to Christmas. So again, buying online, picking up in store does sort of spike right before Christmas time. So please account for that. And then shopping loyalty is definitely going to be tested. That's something that I'm going to talk about in a little bit with the CPG world. But 80% of holiday shoppers aren't sure that they'll return to a new brand that they bought this spring. 54% of consumers reported that they made a purchase from brands that were new to them. So good news a bit for sort of the newer startup brands. But again, this is not a time to, I know a lot of brands during COVID wanted to suspend their budgets because they didn't know what was going on. But we've actually seen that from a long-term view perspective, staying top of mind and keeping that brand awareness is key, especially if you're new to the game. And then this is just a quick little calendar in terms of how you should visualize the next couple months. So starting right now, August, September, you should be finalizing all your testing to make sure that your holiday sort of message and vision is what everyone agrees upon, and that you have to you have to start including smart bidding and testing out the smart bidding strategies now, so that the system can learn what are the customers or leads that have a higher propensity to convert. So the earlier you start, the better the machine understands your type of customers and how to find more of them. You want to perform all your audits right now. That's something that we're doing with the Stella team, and making sure that they're doing that for their clients, making sure that their GFB accounts are prepared, their shopping feeds are looked at and audited, because you don't want to have a fire drill on Black Friday with your shopping feed. And then finalizing your site updates. That's critical. Make sure that your team is testing it. And there's tons of resources online that you can find on how to improve your site speed. Building that consideration. This is, I think, probably the most important, because this is the time where you ensure all your assets across all of our channels, whether it's search, YouTube, display, are all submitted, because last year we actually ran into some issues with some approval suspension issues. So we want to make sure that you're giving our team enough time to approve everything, instead of uploading something the day before a campaign, because there's just so much work and effort that comes into approving these. We want to make sure that we're providing the right message and approving the right messages internally. And investing your upper funnel efforts. So this is where non-brand is key, and YouTube, because you want to start building your customer lists. Whether it's creating different campaigns to build those lists that you can try to remarket to them come November, December. So this is the time to build that consideration, and then invest in our smart shopping campaigns. Again, I've talked about smart bidding, but we also have smart shopping that is able to do a lot of the work for you. You just have to provide the right assets, whether it's display or YouTube. And that way, with our in-market audiences, so we have new in-market audiences. One, for example, is online delivery and food fans. Another one is gaming fans. Another one is do-it-yourselfers, right? So we have different audiences that you can test out beforehand to see if your message, if your product is resonating with them. And then finally, driving sales and maintaining momentum. This is our peak sales time for a lot of the advertisers out there. So you want to be where your customers are. So especially if you have peak days that you normally see prior years, you want to make sure that you're increasing your investments during these specific days or weeks. And then post to Cyber Monday into Christmas, you want to align that promotional calendar that you have with your heaviest spending days. So there's a lot that goes into planning for the holiday season. I know Stella has done it day in and day out, or year in and year out with their customers. But these are the sort of high-level insights that we use. Obviously, we can dive a lot deeper with your individual account to predict what demand will look like. If you have any questions about our smart sort of features or smart bidding sort of tests, please let us know. This is just a quick calendar. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but again, these are what we've seen historically. What are some high traffic days? What are some top historic retail days? So this is a good sort of slide to print out and have on your desk, just to understand kind of what are some, just based on prior experience, what are the days that really drive the most traffic. So this can align with a lot of your promotions. And we want to maximize the average order size as well. So if you increase, your discounts on those high traffic days, and again, we can make those predictions for you based on historicals and what we're seeing with this new holiday season. But really maximizing that average order size is critical, and increasing the investment on those top spending weeks, like I said before with the calendar that I just showed you. And then decreasing smart bidding efficiency so that you can increase that conversion scale. So this is this is a study from Salesforce that kind of looked at the different weeks throughout the holiday season. So work with your agency team, work with your in-house team to see historically what were some peak days for you and how you can take advantage of that. So shifting to CPG. We have a lot of new stats because there has been a huge shift. So the first one is really focusing on, or understanding that it's undeniable that this year has been a very challenging year, and we've made a lot of changes as consumers. So 83% of us have made a change on how we actually get our food and beverage and what we eat and drink. And actually, 90% of us are triggered by a desire to feel safe or comforted. This is the emotion, the sort of the driving force behind our changes. Whether whether it's wanting to shop safer, whether it's having that sense of that indulgent sort of feeling, and then on the right hand side, 54% are triggered by practical needs. So again, we want to make sure that whatever we buy is convenient and easy to prepare. So these are the sort of the things that we're seeing right now. But what's right now, because of this health crisis, a lot of these behaviors are temporary. So restaurant takeout, pickup, that sort of indulgent feeling, that eating ready to eat shelf foods, shopping stores differently, and consuming different food and beverages are all sort of feelings and emotional needs that we have in this moment in time. But some of the things that we're going to see permanently, if you go to the next slide, are focusing on ordering groceries for delivery or pickup. That's not going to go away. It saves time. We're motivated by how convenient it is. Ordering restaurant delivery, that's something that is not going to change either. So it allows for the enjoyment of special occasions, but also sort of the ease of just having something brought to your house. And then eating healthier. So we are going to talk about wellness in a little bit, but that is a sort of an emotion that is not going to go away. So 3 themes for winning in this new normal. Home is the hub, planned behaviors, balancing now and next. We're going to dive into each one of these. Home is the hub. That's pretty easy to understand. We're all at home right now. If you go to the next slide, we are making decisions as a family. At least in the beginning, we're making decisions as a family. Now you may be making more individual decisions, but half of consumers right now are using online sources more during the pandemic than before. So there's a lot more research, like I said, a lot more new queries that are coming in. And then this actually leads into planned behavior. So we're actually seeing on the CPG side that there's less exploration and that limit, and there's not as much impulse buying that we're seeing. So 72% bought CPG brands that they used before COVID, and then 1 in 4 are actually creating more grocery lists. So we're not seeing as much exploration, which again, this is where you have to really connect with your consumer and come up with a very good creative that speaks to people's emotion. Next slide. So I talk about emotion because 47% of people choose brands based on trust. And then 45% of people choose brands based on taste. So we're seeing a lot of very creative, innovative content that's being created right now to connect with that emotion, to connect with wellness. And I'll show you a couple examples of that later on. Next slide. So right now, that is, you see the word indulgence there. People are seeking comfort. People are eating more indulgently, but that's not going to necessarily be permanent. Next is self-care. So 90% of those eating healthy are focused on mindful eating. So really focusing on the ingredients, on the benefits of your product versus focusing on diets, let's say. And then home is the hub, planned behaviors. We talked about these 3 areas. You can see where that spike was within each of the sort of the pillars here. But we're seeing that these behaviors are actually sustained now through August, September. So, the word delivery, it spiked in 2020 again. It has come down, but it's sustained. Same thing with groceries. And now we've seen wellness. It took a dip during March because people wanted to feel comforted. Maybe they wanted that chocolate fix, but at the end of the day, we are seeing wellness kind of come up, and it's going to stay like that. And it's going to continue to be a sort of driving factor behind our decisions. And of course, YouTube, it remains #1 ad-supported OTT platform. Not much to say here other than, we are seeing a lot more questions and interest in what the YouTube platform can do, especially because our targeting is so good. When I say so good, it means we have specific audiences that are either in market or, let's say, affinity audiences. So maybe you want to go after beauty mavens, or maybe for in market, you want to go after people that are in market for baking goods, for example. So we have very specific audiences that you can test to see if your message is resonating with them. Next slide. And then we've seen a 25% increase in watch time overall. So not a huge surprise here. More people at home, more people in front of the screen. These are the type of examples that we're seeing on the YouTube side in terms of what's resonating with people. So when you integrate your content around recipes, around quick sort of simple recipes, or maybe you have certain ingredients that you can combine with an overall recipe. So we're seeing these watch times go up. We're also seeing home workout daily views, which is not a surprise. And then pantry meals views have gone up 49%. And here's a quick, another visual that I like, just to show 20x, there's 20x more recipe videos out there that are being searched for. So the fact that they're searching for it on Google, but and now it's translating into YouTube, because YouTube is more visual. You can use music, you can use sort of that entertainment factor. So I love this slide. And then how to be useful for your consumer. So at the end of the day, I want this to be actionable for you, right? So please focus on deals, coupons, subscription services even. I know that a lot of CPG brands are looking into rebates to try to gain that loyalty from their customers. Looking at price, nutritional content, health benefits, recipes, and then make sure that you're easy to find. If you don't have a strong DTC website, make sure that you tell people exactly where you can find your product. Make that very easy and visible to the consumer. And if you don't have a strong DTC website, I'd recommend starting to really revamp that site. And then Google tools. So I'm going to quickly go through this. I think it's very important because we do have some external tools that have been updated. So we're going to talk about shopping insights, Google Trends, and Find My Audience. So Google Trends, if you're not using it, please do play around with it, see what kind of queries are rising. This is the most up-to-date information in real time that we can provide on an external basis. So it's a good way to kind of gauge how your vertical is doing, what are the rising keywords. You can look at not just Google, but what's rising in YouTube as well. So highly recommend Google Trends. It's one of the first places I tell people to go to. This is actually new, so I want to talk about the rising retail categories because we're starting to actually externalize a lot of retail information. So this is seeing what are the top trending product categories, and then what are the top growing queries within that category. So all you have to do is Google rising retail categories. You'll get to this site. You could look at different countries. You could look at the year-over-year change, or maybe month-over-month. So take a look at this. We're starting to produce more externalized data on the retail side of things. And the beauty category. So I just want to include one. I love sharing the beauty slides with Stella, because we look at them. We try to understand sort of what are the patterns or what's going on, especially with COVID. We wanted to look at Q2 data. So overall, beauty actually had a pretty good quarter given all the external factors, but they saw an 80% increase year over year in generic beauty searches. 77% of all Q2 2020 US beauty searches are generic. So that means that a lot of people are searching for skincare. That's been a huge sort of query that people are searching, because people are at home, they want to take care of themselves. Again, that wellness factor. If you go to the next slide, actually, this is a good sort of visual of how big the market is within the beauty industry. So the darker the shade, the faster that segment is growing. So skincare, you could see, is that dark blue. It's growing like crazy right now. Next is hair care, actually. So we have some really good data in terms of where the market is going, but then that should give you a sense. Again, this is all high level data, but then we do take a closer look at it to see how we can change our messaging. What ingredients are people talking about? Is that something that we can include based on the products that you have? So there's a lot that goes into it, but it's cool to just kind of see this visually within the beauty industry. And then I talked a lot about different audiences that we have on display or YouTube. So we have this Find My Audience tool that you could use to go in. And if you're looking for a specific, beauty product or just an overall sub-vertical, here I just took an example of skincare. You can type in a different product group, and then you can start to see, okay, what are the top YouTube channels within skincare? What within this group are people interested in? What are their shopping habits? What are their interests and behaviors? So it's a pretty interesting tool. I would definitely take a look at it when you get a chance for your vertical. And then last but not least, shopping insights. That's probably the one that a lot of people don't know about. Very similar to Google Trends, but just gives another layer of analysis. So you can, again, compare different terms. You can compare with your competitors. You can play around with the filters on the left-hand side there. And you have different shopping seasons as well that you can look at. So definitely recommend in terms of just getting a nice historical view of your vertical from a shopping perspective. And looks like we're right on time, but definitely happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Tati. It's just so helpful, and I've been thinking about how I'm going to incorporate so much of that information into our conversations with clients, and as you said, specifically into optimizing their campaigns, which is so great. It's really, it's high level, but then it really moves down to being super practical, helpful information for brands, which I love. Yes. So we did fill up a lot of the time, but I did want to just ask, we had a lot of great questions. Again, we'll be happy to follow up individually, but there were a couple that I did want to bring out. One was because I know there have been a lot of questions about influencers. So how do you think about YouTube influencers, especially in CPG?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, so influencers, so at Google, we actually have it's a program called FameBit, where we can match sort of what your objectives are to an actual influencer. And so I can give you more information about FameBit if you're still interested in that after this. So I'm not gonna get in the details of that, but I think influencers are definitely a big part of the marketing strategy. I would say, I think it's important to find out what is the type of content that's resonating, right? What's the type of content that these influencers in the CPG space are creating that is resonating in your industry, that people are discussing in sort of the chat rooms, underneath the video, you could see the type of discussions that are going on. And that can help guide the creative and the messaging, and then you can choose that influencer to see, what is the right influencer for your brand, and it has to be authentic. What I've seen on my side, I've seen a lot of micro influencers. So on the CPG side, I've seen prior customers who are giving testimonials, and they're considered sort of micro influencers too, and it's not as expensive either. So that's one way to do it. But we are seeing more and more influencers kind of integrate themselves and starting to put together recipe videos and being really creative with their content.
That's great. I think that's really helpful. We get so many questions about that. And then we also had a question, you touched on it a little bit, which is loyalty. Loyalty is, honestly, it's a big challenge for a number of our brands, whether CPG, beauty, really all of our categories. But how does Google, if you could just expand a little bit on how Google might be able to help CPG brands maintain and grow loyalty?
Yeah, and it's such a good question. I'm trying to think here with everything that's going on, and being able to stay top of mind with all the noise out there. Loyalty is one of the most important things to think about. And you see with the shortages with the supply chain and private labels, even on Amazon, kind of taking over. There's a lot of noise out there. So I think one way that people can stay connected is through subscription services, maybe some rebates. I even saw an article the other day of Cinnamon Toast Crunch starting a rebate program because they're doing so well right now. So I think the most important thing is to use these contests, use these rebates to get to stay connected with your customer base, and using those marketing lists across all of our channels, whether it's display or YouTube, because once you have that email or that point of contact information, you can uniquely target them in a specific way across all of our brands so that you stay top of mind. So you may not be driving sales right away, but you are staying top of mind when they see you across our channels. Another way to kind of measure success is using a brand lift survey that we have. So once you run an ad with us on YouTube, you can see, hey, did the users through these surveys that we have, did they recall the ad? Did they remember you? Did that message resonate? So that's a good way to kind of measure success. But we have all these YouTube in-market audiences, like baked goods, like chocolate, people that are in market to buy chocolate. I mean, we can get pretty specific. So there are ways to kind of build that loyalty around those in-market audiences.
That's great. Thank you so much. I think we probably have gone over our time a little bit, so appreciate all the great questions, but especially really appreciate the partnership that we have with Tati and with the team at Google. It really is invaluable for our clients to be able to have that relationship. Tati is always there to answer questions, reach out to her team. So we really appreciate that and feel like it's just of such great service to our clients. So thank you again so much, Tati, for taking time to do this. And again, anyone who's listening, please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions that we missed. I also just have to put in my plug because the next few weeks of StellaVision are definitely don't miss. Next week, our Chief Digital Officer, Brandon Hegel, and our Head of Analytics, who's amazing, will be addressing the current state of e-commerce, which Tati has absolutely touched on today. And as she touched on how important measurement is, so we'll be talking about that and how brands can more intelligently measure and attribute digital sales, which is so important. The week after that, September 25th, we are happy to welcome another agency partner, which is Facebook, and they're going to be looking this time a deep look at CPG in social, really to complement all this great work of Tati's. So thank you again, Tati. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great weekend.